Hey folks, Randy Newberg here. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Hunt Talk Radio. Today I am sitting in beautiful Bozeman, Montana, and I don't know how I convinced this person to take such a beautiful morning and spend it in front of a microphone rather than with fly rod in hand. But Mark Seacat is here with me, and I'm very grateful that he did decide to take the invitation. Mark, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And those of you who don't know Mark, I think a lot of you probably do. He owns Seacat Creative. He started that, founded that. I think he started that because the coolest man in the world, the Dos Equis guy. I think you turned down that role for that commercial or something with all your world traveling, and you.
Man, that probably would have been a good gig. That would have been. I doubt I would have turned that down had the offer came across my plate.
Well, Mark has, he's traveled a lot, done a lot of things, and Mark and I living in the same town, having a lot of the same groups we work with. Our paths cross a lot. We get to share a lot of hunting stories, and I've told the audience when we started this podcast a year ago that at times I wanted to have some of the best elk hunters they may have never heard of. And I don't know if you meet the may have never heard of because a lot of people know you, but I think you meet the one of the best elk hunters category, and we're going to get into that. But I don't want you to give any of your secret spots, Mark, because I know, well, you probably could, because I can't say I know exactly where you hunt, but I see some of the places you take pictures, and I'm not going there anyhow.
I think that's one of the nice parts is that, a lot of people aren't venturing to those places at the times that we do. But I appreciate the compliment as one of the best elk hunters. I think I might be in the top 100 in our county.
Our county.
There's a lot of really great elk hunters that probably people haven't heard of around here, and a lot of people that I look up to. So
yeah,
it's a wonderful compliment, one that I don't think I have achieved at this point, but it's something that I'm thankful for sure.
Well, it's funny you say that because with doing our TV show, and I know our show probably the elk hunts we do probably are a little bit different than what you see on a lot of the other TV shows, and people will come up to me and say, man, I don't know how you do that. That looks pretty extreme. And I tell them, I said, I would be in the lower half of badass elk hunters just in my hometown. And they look at me like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm 51 years old. I drive a desk for a living. And if you knew the guys in my hometown, what they do, where they go, and how they kill elk, I don't even want to think about where they go. And people look at me like, holy crap. But we are lucky to live here from the standpoint of where we live. But the downside is there's no rock in this part of the world that doesn't have an elk hunter crossing it at some point in the season.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing, and the elk hunting community here is pretty open, and everybody, it's kind of like an unspoken language, that everybody's just, respectful of other people and complimentary. And I think that that's a really cool aspect of this area. I haven't had any situations, that make me feel otherwise, but I'm very happy when people that I know that are hardcore elk hunters are killing great bulls, and I think it goes both ways, and it pushes you for sure.
Yeah.
How many people are getting out there and getting after it here in this community. Yeah, it's unbelievable. We're lucky to live here, and it's a cool spot for sure.
Yeah. It's a good place to have a creative agency like Seacat Creative.
It makes it easy to to attract high quality personnel. Every aspect of it, from the climbing in the winter to the fishing all year round to the world class hunting opportunities. You can be doing it in 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
I know we better, maybe we're going to need a plug from the Bozeman Tourism and Chamber of Commerce if we keep talking like this. And all of our fellow Bozemanites who are listening are like, would you guys shut up?
Yeah. That's a hard thing, because obviously you get to choose where you live. And, I've known for a long time that I wanted to live in Bozeman. I grew up in Helena, and it was just like Bozeman was this crazy place, you know, with rugged mountains and great rivers to fish. And not that Helena doesn't have those things, but it's different here, and it's a cool spot, and it's available for everybody to go out there and enjoy. So
yeah, lots of public land, which people who've listened to this podcast know Randy's thoughts on protecting our public land. But before Mark and I get into the real deepness of this conversation, which is probably going to be more like a fireside hunting story conversation than it is anything, I want to quickly give thanks to the people who make this podcast possible. Those of you know about the GoHunt.com group. They have their research service called The Insider. Their tagline is "Be Your Own Hunting Consultant," and I use that. It's crazy how much I use that. And you heard me talk about how it helped me discover a Utah unit where I drew the only non-resident archery mule deer tag for this coming fall. It also helped me uncover, and I don't know if I want to say this because you don't want to give away all the tips and tactics, but when I was doing my Wyoming deer research, I'm like, okay, here's my calendar opening. That means I don't want to burn my points because I'm already booked. Where's a really good second choice place I could draw? And it's a spot I'd driven through before, and I saw all these bucks one evening. I'm like, this is crazy. Why is nobody hunting here? Well, I found out it was a lot of a lot of private. But I've figured out a way to navigate that on the BLM, and so I applied, and thanks to their research service showing how the draw odds and everything worked, on Tuesday I found out that me and Matt Seidel from Onyx Maps drew the tag as a second choice. So anyhow, the Insider, go to GoHunt.com and click on their Insider, and if you sign up, the good folks at Gerber are giving everybody a free Vital scalpel blade knife. It's the replaceable blade knife that you see us using out in the field. And all you have to do to get that knife when you sign up is use the promo code HUNTTALK, HUNTTALK. And if you do that, you're going to get a really, really good knife from Gerber. GoHunt.com/insider and use the promo code HUNTTALK. And then I told you that Matt Seidel from Onyx Maps drew the tag with me in Wyoming, and the Onyx Maps guys are great supporters of this podcast also. They have their new Hunt app out, and I was over there getting, I guess you'd call it, schooled up or educated, as hard as that is for an old gray-haired 51-year-old guy like me to do. But the new Hunt app they have, it takes everything and brings it to your desktop, transferable and interchangeable with your cell phone, your smartphone. And if you go out to onyxmaps.com and you subscribe and buy any of their products through their Hunt app, use the promo code RANDY16, RANDY16, and you're going to get a large discount for doing that. So very grateful for those companies to be part of this podcast. And now with that out of the way, Mark, we're gonna tell hunting stories.
That was impressive.
You're
good at that.
Oh,
You're
really
good at that.
Almost to the point now where it's like he might have done this a time or two.
Yeah, for sure. That's the Go Hunt stuff is that's a pretty incredible service. I hadn't, I've kind of shied away from a lot of that type of stuff. And one of my close buddies, Brendan Burns, when that first started, he was like, man, you got to check this out. And so I became an insider member, and it's just awesome that you have what you can like find out and learn there. And what's even cooler is like the service that they'll provide you. I've been blowing up Brady Miller, and he gives me, he's like via text and Instagram messages, and he gives me such like great help like in the things that I'm looking for. And that's a really cool company for sure. Yeah.
And Mark referred to Brady Miller. Brady is kind of their content guy at the Go Hunt.
Super
website.
Talented. Yeah.
And he's a serious archery mule deer hunter.
Which is why I'm trying to get
Mark. Mark was telling me before the podcast that his goal this year is to focus on some serious mule deer hunting this year. So I hope you get that dialed in and figured out.
Yeah, thanks. I hope so too. We'll have a good time.
But sure. Is that going to interfere with your normal September elk hunting?
Yeah, it will. it's this trip is more about a trip of friendship. I'm going down there with a great buddy of mine, Bobby Warner, and one of my best friends, Adam Foss, and doing some stuff that we haven't done before, and hunting like all three of us together, which I think will be pretty cool. And not the focus isn't to kill 3 deer. The focus is to go have a good time with people that should really get along well. And Adam has never met Bobby, and it should be a pretty cool time, which is
cool.
I think it's a cool way of looking at it.
Yeah.
In terms of a hunt.
So there will be maybe a couple elk in Montana that get a reprieve this year, or you'll still fit some time in.
It seems like the elk during archery season have been getting a reprieve from me for a long time. So it's
that's this whole work thing gets in the way sometimes.
I still get a lot of days during archery season. It's just a matter of, for me, like, I think the beauty of where I live and what I get to do is the number of days that I can spend doing it. And I've got a very flexible schedule and a wonderful partner in crime that, supports me to get out there and do the stuff that I love. So it's, as many days as I can get in the fall. Like, I've told somebody at one point that if I killed an elk on the first day of the season, like, I'd feel pretty bummed out about it, even if it was a great big giant, which is what it would take. But that's and it gets harder and harder for me to like find the animal that I'm looking for. So I feel like I get pickier and pickier, and it bit me last year a little bit, but that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah. Well, and I think you reach a point where it's the days in the field that are more important than what the end result is. At least for me, anyhow.
Yeah, and the people that you're with.
Yeah.
It's that aspect of it for me is really what motivates me for hunting, is the time that I get to spend with people that I really love and cherish, and you build relationships with, and friendships grow deeper, and I think that's a super important aspect to it.
Yeah, it is for me. I just people are like, gee, Randy, you call that a job? You spend 100 days a year hunting. And when you spend 100 days a year hunting, it is very important that you spend those days with people you want, in places you want, trying to tell stories you want. To me, if my job was I had to go and find a bigger buck every day, or had some artificial setting of, okay, this animal has to be of this size to get on TV, I would have hung it up like after the first year, just because to me the stories are personal, human interaction, friendship, relationship stories. I mean, some of our best episodes are the ones where it's me and a longtime friend, me and my uncle, or me and my son. I think just because people can relate to that, they hunt for the same reasons you just talked about.
Definitely.
So when I first met you, Mark, I think that was 2007, something like that. Everything I'd heard about you is you were this crazy mountaineering guy that had done a couple trips to McKinley, and correct me, it's been a while since I knew all this, but you grew up in Helena, but you had this hunting passion all your life. It's part of your family, but you really got into mountaineering for a while, it sounded like.
Yeah, I think I've been, I've kind of followed like different paths, like at different points in my life, based on what was, really motivating. And growing up in Helena, we spent most of our time hunting in the Tobacco Root Mountains, just west of Bozeman here, and would travel down there. My dad met a landowner back in the day. There was an article in the Independent Record in Helena that was like, Tobacco Root Mountains have too many elk. Like, landowners want elk hunters. And
there's no such thing as too many elk, is there?
Well, that was
if you're
the
a
article.
landowner, there is.
Yeah, and my dad went down there and knocked on the door. The first door he knocked on was a wonderful ranching family, and they gave him access to hunt their land as long as he walked from the house, and it was a pretty neat deal. And they became lifelong friends, and that gentleman's now my godfather, and my mom was hunting the ranch, when I was in the womb. So I grew up hunting and loving it, and grew up fishing, and played sports going through high school, and went to school in Colorado on a football scholarship. And that was like the one year for me where I didn't get a chance to really hunt elk. And a lot of things aligned, including like a horrible football injury that didn't allow me to play quarterback anymore. And so it was pretty much immediate that, you know, I was going to come back to Montana State and kind of follow my dream of living in Bozeman, and started, I went to school here and, you know, really got into fishing and like did that a lot more and kind of followed that as far as I could. I took a semester off and went to New Zealand for 6 months of just solo fly fishing, which was a tremendous experience. Wow. And once you do something like that, you come back, and even as good as Montana is for fly fishing, like that like experience of going there and doing it every day and catching, you know, huge trout, like 10-pound plus trout on small little dry flies is a pretty tremendous experience. So I kind of like lost the drive to fish more. Never lost the drive to hunt more, but just kind of, you know, lost that drive to fish a little bit more. And it was the timing worked out really well that I kind of fell into a group of people at Montana State that were into climbing, and some tremendous climbers, you know, guys like Whit Magro and those type of guys that are now pushing the envelope of what anybody in the world is doing, you know, in Bozeman, and got to do some, you know, the Bozeman Ice Festival is a really, really cool program that puts new like ice climbers out there with some of the world's best climbers. And it was something that was unbelievable. I actually got belayed on my first ice climb by a guy named Mark Twite, who's like a tremendous climber. Wrote a book called Extreme Alpinism that was like, I got belayed by him, didn't really understand who he was, and it was like Steve House is there and Barry Blanchard and just these like tremendous like climbers, Conrad Anker, like all these guys. And it's just like, it's hard not to, when you live in this community and those people are around you. Like I remember when, you know, Alex Lowe used to have like garage sales at the end of the season, you know, at his house. And like you could go and get like all this amazing gear that was like barely used that he was recycling. And so it was like, I really looked up to those people, and that was a driver. And I had a few friends that were really into it, and I started getting into climbing. And, you know, that was, one thing after another. I studied business finance and economics here at MSU and graduated and had a lot of opportunities to go to New York or Chicago in the trade markets. And I had a professor that was just like, you'd be perfect at this, you got to do it, and set up a bunch of interviews for me. And I ended up like, you know, when graduation came around, he was like, well, are you going to go like do those things? And I was like, I'm actually like packing everything into my car, and like I'm moving to Washington for the summer with one of my best friends, and we're going to live in his parents' house and just climb mountains. And I think that my professor didn't quite understand that, but my parents were very supportive of anything that I wanted to do. And so we went out there and we like worked one job the whole summer and like re-roofed the neighbor's house and made enough money to
go climb.
And we just ticked off, you know, a lot of those big volcanoes and went on a lot of big trips. And it was after that I like came back at the end of the summer and worked as a bartender in Helena and saved my money to go down to South America. And I went down there and climbed Aconcagua by myself. I think I was like 21 or 22 at the time.
Yeah. Is that the trip where things didn't necessarily go as planned?
Yeah, it was. I actually got stuck after like coming down from the climb. I got stuck in a camp at 19,000 feet in some pretty tremendous weather. And they have a weather event down there called the White Wind. And it's just like crazy wind conditions. And I got stuck in that situation for, you know, it was probably like 36 hours, and it was like on an area of the mountain on Aconcagua that doesn't have a lot of snow. And so it was hard to like get water, and like, you know, I was like taking ice chunks and like melting them, and they're like sandy and gritty. And, you know, it was like one of those situations where it was like, okay, like time to go down. And it's so crazy how one like simple decision can change a lot of things in that world. And the decision I was, at the time, I had a Bibler Fitzroy tent, which is one of the greatest tents that was ever made, a single wall tent. And the tent poles are on the inside of the tent, and they sit against the wall, and they have these little tiny plastic clips that hold it in place. And I couldn't, with my big gloves on, I couldn't undo the clips because I had like these big black diamond gloves on, and I couldn't undo the clips. So I took my gloves off. I've got like my tent, like, you know, strapped to my backpack filled with all my stuff so the wind won't blow it away. Everything's out of the tent. All I have to do is break down the tent, shove it into the backpack, and start the descent. And so I'm like undoing these clips. I undid all the clips. And then my error was that I didn't immediately put my gloves back on when the clips were undone. And so I grabbed the aluminum poles and broke down all the aluminum poles. And there's 4 poles in that tent design. And through the process of doing that, the temperature that the poles had been at was really cold, and it transferred that cold temperature into my fingertips.
Yeah.
And the net result was I ended up with 3rd degree frostbite on 8 of my fingers.
Wow.
And so I didn't realize exactly what happened. I put my gloves back on, my hands were cold. I got the tent in, and I started my descent. And from, I went from 19,000 feet to the base camp, which was at 13,000 feet. And during that time period, that was a pretty long descent by yourself with a heavy load. It was, I was getting knocked down by the wind, where it would just like come around the corner. You could hear it coming, and it would just knock me down. And by the time I got to base camp, I had made some friends there at base camp, you know, coming in as somebody that's climbing solo. You like rely on people, and you become friends with people. And I had made some friends, and I showed them my hands, and they immediately, it was, you know, everybody was helping out, and it was, it was, it was a bad deal. And I ended up in a hospital on the Argentinian-Chilean border, a military hospital, and they, you know, looked at me, and it was just like, okay, like there's not much we can do now. And it was rough because I was at the beginning of a 8-month trip to South America.
Oh, wow. And
I was just a few weeks in. My whole goal was to go down there, climb the mountain, sell all my mountaineering gear, and then use the money to like continue to travel around and fish in Patagonia. And I had all my fishing stuff with me as well. And so it was a quick turnaround. And I had pieced the ticket together. I think it was like a $600 ticket to get to South America through like 3 different airlines. And so coming back was really hard. I couldn't button a button. I couldn't zip my zipper on my pants, and the pressure in all the different airplanes like was really hard on my fingers. And I remember my parents like coming down to Salt Lake to pick me up because that's the closest I could get back to Montana. And just my mom like in tears, like, look, my hands were, it was, you know, pretty ugly. And I met with a doctor in Helena, and he told me that I'd never do any, you know, high altitude or cold weather mountaineering again, and that I'd never be able to play a stringed instrument and all those type of things. And that was pretty motivating for me. And I did a lot of research. I mean, this is like my like fingernails, like basically the tips of my fingers like fell off in the process. They turned black, and you know, it was a sight to see, really. But it was motivating to have somebody tell me a bunch of stuff that I couldn't do. Yeah. And I started researching like how the Inuits handle like frostbite and what they do, and cold water immersion and all this stuff. And I started like taking it upon myself to like heal, and did a really good job. And I've, you know, since then, I think that was like at the, that happened. It was like December 21st of 2002, I think. And in May of 2003, I was standing on top of Denali with a buddy. So it was motivating. Started learning how to play the mandolin. You know, it's just like, I like it when people tell me I can't do something. So
kind of like my wife, when I started the TV show and it was all self-guided public land hunting, it was kind of not to that degree of a physical challenge, but I was told, oh, that'll never work. No one will watch that, blah, blah, blah. And so I came home after one of the big trade shows and told my wife, and she gets this concerned look like, oh, I hate it when someone tells Randy he can't do it. that means he's now got something that he's going to try to do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So I guess mountaineering was just an important aspect, that like suddenly that was something that, I really loved to do. And I had a lot of really great experiences and a lot of unbelievable trips. And, I was going to Alaska to go on climbs and figure out ways to, spend more time in the mountains. And, my life pretty much revolved around it. And I was living in cars with buddies and doing whatever I could, to maximize the time that I could spend in the mountains. And that was a focus. I was kind of caught in that time period where you're like, what am I going to do with my life? And, asking my dad like what I should do and all those type of things. And he was just like, keep doing what you're doing. The job that you'll eventually do probably hasn't even been invented yet, and just keep having fun. Because I was like, maybe I should, get my MBA. Maybe I should take the LSAT. Like, I'd probably be a good lawyer, like all those type of things. And it was cool to have a dad and a family that was just like, you know what, just like do what you want to do and do what you love, and you'll figure out a way to make it all work.
Yeah. Well, the growing up is overrated anyhow.
It is.
I mean, I always say when I grow up, and right now I've been able to make it 51 years without growing up. So I would, anyone listening to this, I would say, maybe you want to just defer the growing up part of it, because growing up is overrated in my mind. But so with that background, Mark, I followed you and your brother-in-law Andrew one time in Utah on an elk hunt. He had that tag down there, and fortunately, I had a camera guy that was in a lot better shape than I was. But watching you guys run around the rocks and canyons and stuff there, it was interesting to watch how two mountaineering people, or people with a mountaineering background, chased elk. There was a part of me where I thought, are you guys here to just jump on them and stab them, or are you guys actually trying to shoot this thing with a bow? I mean, you guys got after it. And so it got me to thinking, as part of this podcast, are there a lot of those kind of skills and disciplines and just mental mindset from mountaineering that translated well to elk hunting the way you elk hunt now?
I think that the biggest part where those two things correlate together are the partnerships. It's hunting is typically it's a solo type achievement or endeavor, and I think that I've never really looked at it as that. Like, all the greatest experiences that I've had, I feel like, are with hunting partners, and that's the partnership with mountaineering or climbing, ice climbing, rock climbing. That's you rely so much on your partner. And I think that all of those things kind of lead to, where you end up, and as far as now how I approach any type of hunting activity is, with a friend or, with a partner. I rarely do stuff solo. And I think it's just that it's part of friendship, and that aspect of it is really cool. Obviously the gear, associated with it when you're climbing Denali, the gear is very important, and the type of footwear, the socks, the everything, the tents, all of that stuff come into play. So now I have a, very good understanding of what works and what doesn't in really harsh environments. And so I feel like, that aspect, it also is pretty important to it, and what you take, what you don't, how to lighten up your load, and those type of aspects, what to eat, in terms of calorie intake, it's super important. And I think that all that stuff that I learned from mountaineering, translates really well over to hunting, and makes it a lot easier, to look at situations and know what to do, what to take, how to dress, how to layer, all those type of things.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that, and maybe there's somewhere in the mountaineering world where this happens also, but when I first started elk hunting, I was the worst elk hunter that ever, like most everything I start into, I'm usually the worst you've ever seen. And it's just a lot of trial and error for me to have to learn the hard way. And if I've been blessed with one thing in life, it's not a lot of talent, but it's a level of determination and a level of stick-to-itiveness that usually gets me through a lot of these struggles. And in elk hunting, public land elk hunting anyhow, the way that we do it for our platforms is you get to this point where you see people who come to it and they're going through the same phase. I feel like when I started, they hadn't built the proper, I'll say, expectation of how much work it's going to be, how much frustration is going to be there, how many failures are going to be there. And a lot of times I'll talk to people or I'll see them or I'll bump into them out in the woods and I can see them going through that mental struggle point in that process. Whereas now I'm beyond that, where it really doesn't even faze me if something goes wrong or we're not seeing anything. It's just, well, this is part of what public land elk hunting really is. And so I try to tell people that first of all, killing an elk when you find it with a rifle is probably one of the easier things to do. Finding elk is harder, but having the mental fortitude on public land on these backpack hunts to keep going and pushing on is probably where most people just turn around and say, screw it, not worth it. Do you get that same situation in the mountaineering world, I would think, where you really don't realize until you push through it that, hey, this can be done. I think, at least I did anyhow in the elk hunting world, I kind of set up my own hurdles that maybe didn't have to be there. And then once I climbed those hurdles and pushed through, now those hurdles are nowhere in my mind ever anymore. It's just do it and push through and stay focused on what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is in terms of both mountaineering and hunting is like achievement-based success, where people feel like if I reach the summit, like I'll be able to say I made it to the summit, or if I kill a great big elk, I'll be able to say I killed a great big elk. And I think a lot of people, that struggle and the effort that it takes that's the real like gold of like being involved in that activity. I think it's hard for people that might not live here, or might not live anywhere in the West where there is an elk population, or if they didn't grow up doing it, to break through that. But I think it's definitely achievable for people. I think that the biggest thing is not to set like unrealistic goals.
Yeah.
I have a friend that lives, in Maryland, and he's been out on a lot of hunts, and he initially was motivated. Well, I just got to kill a great big 6-point, and I told him at one point, I was like, if you're coming from out of state and you're like going on elk hunts, like, unless you're like going on like the best private ranches with the, the best outfitters and all those type of things, and like the expectation is that you will kill a giant. The best way to learn and to experience it is to look at it as a long-term plan, and you should shoot like every legal elk that's standing in front of you when you see it,
right,
and fill your tag. And if you don't do that, like you're gonna leave feeling that you may have missed out. And like eventually, like if you start by shooting a cow and eventually you're going to get lucky, and the stars will align and there'll be a great big bull right there. And it's just a matter of like preparing yourself for that time so that you can handle the situation when you do, and go through the ups and downs and the struggles, and they're all worthwhile. Like regardless of whether you kill an elk or not, like that struggle is worthwhile for sure.
Yeah, to me, that's the story. That's the pleasure. Very seldom when I'm sitting around the campfire with my buddies do I talk about the hunts where everything went smooth and easy. It's always the stories we remember, and the ones we talk about are, remember that blizzard, or remember when we got lost, or whatever it might be. I mean, and so for me, every one of those had one of those challenging times where I thought, well, this isn't going to work out. Hell with it. I'm going home. But I didn't go home. Stuck with it. And lo and behold, the day, 2 days, 3 days later, all of a sudden the planets aligned and there's a bull, whether it's a big bull, small bull. For me, it really doesn't matter if you're out west, especially if you're a traveling elk hunter. I think to come out west, and if you do it yourself and you shoot any elk on public land, you should be really pleased with what you've accomplished. I mean, that's I maybe we set false expectations in some of the media world. I suspect we probably do. And
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, that's the pressure associated for people to try to live up to what they see on magazine covers or in TV shows. I mean, or in all aspects of it. I mean, I feel the same way. In terms of like whitetail hunting, like, I need to kill a big one. But I'm not. I'm learning, so it's okay to like go through that process of like getting better at it. But it's definitely something in media where traditionally it has been motivated by how big or what the score is, and there's still a lot of aspects to that. Hopefully people can see through that, and I know a lot of people do. To why they're there and what they're trying to experience, and why it's a good thing just to be out there, and how lucky you are to get a chance to go. I mean, most people are carving out time from a very busy schedule to spend their like precious vacation time on a trip. And I think that if they can look at it more as like vacation and not put that expectation on it, I think that'd be a great thing. A lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to be successful in terms of what other people or what media has put out there. And I think you're missing the point, really, if that's what's happening. And I think a lot of people might experience that a couple times, and then they come to the understanding that, oh yeah, I'm here to enjoy and to have fun and to learn, and about the friendships and the people that I'm with, the place that I'm at, I get to spend time in too.
Yeah, that expectation thing or pressure thing, I think that is so true, and I was a victim of that in, what year was it? 2005. Yeah, I drew a Nevada elk tag, and everyone's like, "Oh, you got to shoot a 360 or better bull." So I'm, at that time I've maybe shot 6 or 8 bulls in my life, and I never shot a 360 bull. So I'm like still feeling, oh yeah, this guy said that, and it's someone I respect. Boy, I better shoot a 360 bull. And then a kind of a funny story. I told my buddy Jerry Pritchard, I said, hey, I drew this Nevada elk tag, and this was back before Arizona let you buy a point, so you had to actually apply in the draw. I told Jerry, he grew up in Williams, Arizona. He said, I don't need another tag. I just need a point. What should I apply for? He said, apply for the Unit 10 early rifle elk tag. You'll never draw it. Don't worry about that. Well, lo and behold, I drew like tag number 5 or something out of the 50 or 25 tags. So that year was the first year I really had an opportunity with some, what some people would call once in a lifetime elk tags. And I did feel pressure that, oh gee, if I don't shoot like a 360 bull, everyone's going to think I bailed out or whatever. And I still had the idea that no matter what the outcome is, I want to go there. I want to try to figure it out myself, go through those frustrations, go through the whole process of, okay, it worked or it didn't work, and accept my own results for what the results were. End of the story, when it's all over, I've shot 2 very nice bulls, one in each state, but they weren't 360 bulls. But I was super happy. But there were times when that pressure is almost like, oh, you had that tag and you only shot a 330 bull or a 340 bull. Yeah, man, I had a blast. I spent it with my uncle and some great friends. And so, and now we see it, and I think it's even more amplified today than it was 10 years ago. Of people will draw what I'll call a glory tag, for lack of a better term. And the pressures, they'll contact me. They're like, man, there's a lot of pressure with this tag. And I almost want to say, take the pressure off, release the steam here. I don't know. I worry that the media world is contributing to that in a bad way.
Yeah, it's hard. I find myself like I've yet to draw like a tremendous. I've like got lucky in like some of the tag drawings in Utah and that kind of stuff. I've yet to really have like one of those tremendous tags, and I know that I eventually will get there as my points build across the West. But and there will no doubt be that pressure when that happens. And I have this like, I don't know what it is, but I'm not worried so much about my fall a lot of time. I'm thinking about like, I have so many friends that draw great tags, and I want to go and experience it and be there to like help them. because there is a lot of pressure. And if you're focused on like how big a bull you're trying to find, you don't eat right, or you don't like chill and relax. And so as people draw tags, like I find myself saying yes to go on lots of different hunts because I just want to go, and like the opportunity for some of those areas, as like friends have drawn like some of the better elk tags in Montana or Nevada or the places I've gotten to go hunt, Utah. I want to go because the opportunity just to see those bulls, like that type of bull, like, and find them I get enough out of that to where I don't need to be the hunter. But the pressure that I've had friends put on themselves is crazy. And if they come home without, it lingers for a long time. And I think that's like, it's not, I don't know if it's a pressure that the media has put on per se, as much as it's like a pressure because of how much time people spend waiting and dreaming. Friends of mine in Utah that have waited 12, 16 years to draw tags, like they put a lot of pressure on themselves. And, that's a hard thing, but I think it's also human nature. If you're a hunter and you've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and finally you draw the tag, it's like, you almost want that as a like some sort of glorification, that it's like, look at all the time and effort and the years I spent applying, and this is the fruit of that labor. It doesn't always work out that way though, and that's part of it, and how people deal with it. And I try never to put any pressure on people that have those great tags, and try to do whatever I can to help them.
Yeah, well, if people went to my desk drawer and opened up the drawer to see the number of unpunched glory tags that are in that drawer, they would see an Arizona strip mule deer tag that I hunted from start of season to end of season. Kind of had it in my mind what I wanted, and passed some really, really nice bucks, but quite honestly, I don't have any regrets. It was a great, fun hunt. Hunted with a great guy, Breck Bundy, down there. This is 2007, I think, and my uncle joined me, and we had a blast in a place that I'd never been to, and quite likely will never get to go again. In that drawer, they will find an Arizona antelope tag, an archery tag from Unit 5B. I could have shot many bucks on that hunt. A friend of mine, Eli Grimmett, him and his dad have, bless you, Eli and his dad, Tony, have a service called Pronghorn Guide Service, and they were scouting for the governor's tag there, and one day I see Eli looking at this really nice buck, and I'm on the hill up above him, and I text him and said, "What do you think of that buck?" And he's like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm on the hill right up above you." He's like, "That's like an 84-inch buck. Why aren't you shooting that?" And the answer was because it was early in the hunt, and I'd seen some other super duper nice bucks, and so that tag is still in my desk drawer. I have a Unit 17 archery elk tag from New Mexico that's still in my desk drawer. I've got all kinds of glory tags that I never punched, and they were some of the funnest hunts that I've ever done. And I bring that up here because I want the listener to understand that I've had the benefit of that, and it's going to be okay if you don't fill that tag. Don't stress yourself.
Yeah, for sure. And if you set a goal, if you have a goal in mind and you say, okay, like I really want to kill a 380 bull this year, and you walk away from a 360 bull because that's your goal, and as long as you like, if you set a goal and you're happy with that goal and you like the effort and the time that you put in to try to get it, and you walk away from stuff that other people would be, unbelievably stoked with, like that, I think as long as you set the goal and you're like stick to it, that's great. Like, the minute that you're like, well, okay, I'll do this, or the old, saying that like, don't like pass on a bull you'd be happy to shoot the last day. Right. Like, I've never really looked at that. It's always been, set a goal and try to achieve it. And if you don't like that doesn't mean that you didn't have a great experience.
Right. Yeah, and for me, it's just whatever turns my fancy on that hunt, and I can't say that it's going to be a big animal, a funky looking animal. Whatever it's going to be is just what it's going to be. I've went on a lot of pronghorn hunts and ended up not filling the tag because I was looking for something ugly. For me, ugly pronghorn is like my new problem in life, if you want to call it that. So for those of you listening, don't get yourself all worked up and so tightly wound about these tags, because it's June. All the drawings have been out for the most part. Guys are sitting on their sheep tags or elk tags or whatever, and I hope they can see it as a great opportunity to have a wonderful hunt and let the outcome be what the outcome is, and not take the fun out of it. But so that was a distraction or a tangential conversation about me starting down the path of media. And you at Seacat Creative, Mark, you guys get to do a lot of work in the hunting industry. And I see the message in the product that you guys put out. And a lot of people may not know, oh, that was made by Seacat Creative or produced by Seacat Creative. I just about always know, because I know what your guys' style is, what your look and feel is. Just about everything you guys put out is about the experience. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen anything that you guys have produced for one of your clients that was about something huge or whatever. Is that in this, I guess, in this modern day world where everyone's racing for bigger, you got Mark and Seacat Creative over here kind of following their own path, telling their clients, no, it's not about bigger. It's about depth and something deeper than that. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I think that's always been our mindset. Back in the day when my goal was to be a professional climber, you have to continue to push yourself all the way to the brink of death all the time. And that continuing to push, you see people, fall off or people die because of that. And it's the same way with hunting. If it's always about how big something is, you're setting yourself up for failure, Yeah. And I think for us, it's always been about the path. And I think that came from the mountaineering background, is the hard work and effort is more important than the summit or reaching the top of the climb. I think that's where it came from for us, and to try to show what is authentic, because then you always have a story, you know, and whether you kill something or not, it doesn't matter, because that's not the purpose of it. That's not the end goal. So I think we've always kind of looked at it as that, and have surrounded ourselves with companies and people that get that and believe in it. And I think that's the most important part anyways. And if we get a chance to be on the stage where people see what we do, or we get to work for these great companies, we might as well share the parts that are really important versus what, is just an afterthought almost in terms of what you do and what you get. And I think a lot of people would say, well, maybe maybe they say that because they don't kill anything or that kind of thing. And you see that happens with people that, have a show or something, and they almost act let down if they didn't get anything. And it's if you go into it knowing that the beauty is in the experience and the trip and going from there, then, sometimes it's going to work out exactly as you hope and plan for, and other times it isn't. But as long as that's your mindset, you're going to have something of high quality to share with people. And I think that's where, as a business, we've always looked at it that way, is, we want to share every man's story. We're no different than anyone else. We want to share something that anyone can relate to.
Yeah. Well, and I tell people that my job isn't to necessarily shoot an animal on every trip, because I'd say about 30% of our episodes we end up not filling a tag. And my job is to go out and hunt and find what the story is while we're hunting. That's really what my job is. Because like you said, if you go out there and you're just there in the mountains or the hills or the woods for 5 days or 7 days or 10 days, there's some story there. And there's some story there that's probably more of a not man against nature, not man against man, but kind of a man against himself sort of storyline. And I think those are the stories, at least for me. I hope I'm right when I say this, that I think that's what our audience, our listener, our viewer is more intrigued by, because they can relate to it. They've been there. It's happened to them. They've struggled before. They've almost quit and then decided not to quit, and all of a sudden it worked out for them. Or they've came home and said, you know what, I gave it my best and it just didn't work out. To me, that's my job. And I see that in the product that you guys put out for your clients. And we've got a couple mutual clients that you and I work with, Sika gear, and you guys do a lot of stuff for them, and the imaging. I think everybody would agree that the imaging for Sika gear is great. It conveys that feeling that the brand wants to have, and you guys are heavily involved in a lot of that.
Yeah, we've been working with those guys since the beginning. When I was back working at Mystery Ranch back in the day, I remember seeing like the first Sika catalog, and a pair of size 32 mountain pants showed up at Mystery Ranch every single Friday. And I was just like, this pile of like Sika pants was showing up, and I was just like, there must be an error like hit there in the shipping department. Something's going on. And Andrew and Luke Buckingham had like traded one of their guys a Mystery Ranch pack for some gear, and it just got stuck in the system that we got this pair of size 32 mountain pants every week. And so I called the shipping guy, and I was just like, hey, a pair of size, and the pants didn't fit me. So that's why I was like, okay, well, let's see how we can play
if you're going to
this.
ship them, ship something that fits.
Yeah. And I was just like, hey, like this is happening. And the guy he was, really nice on the phone, and you could tell that it was like, he was like, oh geez, like I've messed up here. Like, what can we do? To like, I was like, I can send them all back. I think there was like 12 or 16 pairs of pants. It was like, it was getting crazy. And I was like, hey, I can ship them all back. Like, the thing that I would ask from you is maybe you could give me, the founder's emails address, and so that was like my in with Sika. And I saw their first catalog, and they had some great real images in there. And, but I knew I was sitting on imagery like of hunting that would blow those out of the water. And I was just like, what a great opportunity.
Yeah.
And reached out to those guys, and, started a relationship really quickly with them. And I think the first time that we got clothing, we immediately went out and went on a hunt and got real photos. That was, I think, like the cover of the second catalog, and like 90% of the imagery in the catalog. And then it was like the first year I ever got to go to trade shows, and the whole Sika booth was covered in my pictures of my brother-in-law. Yeah. And so that was really cool, and they were the first company really that was like, okay, authentic experiential imagery, much like Patagonia or Black Diamond has done in their respective worlds. This is how we want to market to people. And I thought that was really, really cool. And I mean, I worked for those guys for like 3 or 4 years, and just like trading imagery for, a bow or those type of things, and just really loved that brand and wanted to do whatever I could to work with them. And at the time, the gear has never been important to me as far as like getting stuff for free or in trade. Like I've always had really, really great gear from the mountaineering side. It was always about like, helping to lead hunting, hopefully into an area that it was authenticity was really important, and the experience was important, and the imagery comes out of that, and I think that's a cool thing about that brand is they've always like pushed forward with that. And you see it, you've seen it like explode in the industry since. And I think that's awesome. Like I'm not, as I look at the marketing from other companies like Kuiu or First Light, it's awesome. Yeah. I love to see that. I love to see where companies are going with that marketing, and people are really pushing the bar. And, as we have like competitors of Sika push the bar, it means that we get to do more amazing things, and we get to go more places, and people get to see that more. And I think that's a really cool aspect of what has happened within the space.
Yeah. And to the point of, you guys have been pretty selective about who you work with. You don't want to be necessarily, and I don't, if I'm putting words in your mouth, correct me, but I get the sense that you guys don't want to be all things to everybody. You just want to be really good at what you do and work with companies who share the same vision of a brand and vision of hunting as you do. And in what I've been doing, a lot of people are like, well, why aren't you involved with this company or that company? And it's nothing against any company. It's that I have chose which companies I want to deal with. First of all, they have to be heavily involved in conservation. If they aren't big supporters of conservation, my brand and their brand probably isn't going to mix that well. And it's really helped me have a clarity to the message I want to have. It gives me all this confidence that, you know what, these people are with me for the same reason I'm with them. So if I stick my neck out on a political issue or something, I probably don't have to worry that I'm going to get a phone call from someone saying, "Hey, Newberg, your contract's expired," stuff like that. And so I see how you guys have been doing this in your business, and it's just fun to watch you guys do that, because it kind of confirms that, you know what, Randy, maybe you're not completely an idiot for turning down these other opportunities. You got your vision for a brand and a message, and you're sticking with it. Even if your wife says, "How long do we got to make payments on this TV show job that you have?" But because she says that the TV show is the funnest job I ever bought.
Right.
And a lot of people think that I'm making all this money doing TV if they only knew.
Right. I feel like for us, I've always been really comfortable in the fact that we hunted down the companies that we wanted to work with, or we really evaluated their marketing and their efforts and said, hey, we can improve upon what they're doing. And it's always been like, if you look at like our client list, everything has been long-term relationships.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been built over hard work and effort. And eventually, like if you put that in, it leads to, you know, great opportunities. And, you know, I mean, at Mystery Ranch, like I went into the office and wasn't an employee there and just like worked there for, I think, 9 months leading up to like taking a job for $8 an hour as a janitor, you know, with them. With Sika, like we provided stuff for over 3 years before we ever saw a paycheck. And I think that the trust that companies have and the hard work and effort is paramount.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go back. Every company that we've worked with, we've done so for a long time period. And we're starting to get to that point where like we've gotten bigger. Companies are getting bigger. There's change and different roles in marketing when people leave. And that can be hard as you know, contracts, you know, disappear or go down or those type of things. But it's a long-term look at it. And I feel very comfortable that we haven't ever chased the mighty dollar. You know, we've done what we've wanted to do and have stuck with the formula that works for us. And I think that that's a pretty cool aspect to it.
Yeah. Well, and now given some background to how Mark, his philosophy about imagery, messaging, all that, I don't want to put you too much on the spot here, Mark, but I am worried that in the hunting space, what our messages are sometimes are not necessary. And by that, I mean, whether it's the media folks like me with TV show, all of us who have TV shows, or what's on magazine covers and other stuff, is this the direction we want hunting to be going? And I've been a contrarian in the TV world of, okay, I'm just going to do these self-guided public land hunts, and if I don't kill anything, just, oh well, that's life. So I'm a little bit of a weird duck there. I'm interested if you have any thought, and again, I don't want to put you on the spot, but are we in the hunting world heading the right direction as a collective community based on the understanding that our message, if it doesn't match our stated motivations for why we hunt, our message is something else, society's going to look at that and say, I'm not sure what role hunting and hunters have going forward. I know that might put you in a hard spot, but
yeah, I'm trying to find
the safe place to answer.
No, not the safe place, but just like, you know, thinking through it. My personal belief is that hunting is definitely, the image that we're putting out there to the rest of the world has improved vastly.
Yes, I would agree with that.
You know, in the time period that I've been involved in the industry, you know, watching it, you know, from the inside, you know, for as long as I have, I think it definitely has improved. And I think, you know, the movement associated with food is a really awesome opportunity.
Super.
You know, because it's true, and it's not something that the hunting industry has to, like, you know, glom onto, because it's like an accepted movement for people like wanting to, you know, get their own food their own ways. But it's a true aspect of, you know, what's important to hunting, and I think that that's great. There's always going to be, you know, the back and forth between hunters and non-hunters as to why it's important. And I think that having people that can speak up in a way that, like, you know, fits the bill and makes more sense is really an important aspect. I mean, I worked as a hunting guide and gardener, and I simultaneously was, you know, doing photography for Patagonia, and I was, you know, running a ecological research center out of Cook City, you know, and it's like, I mean, I'm the, like, Patagonia wearing, like, hunting guide, you know, type of person. And I think that, you know, I was working on, you know, coyote studies and alongside the Doug Smith wolf studies, and, like, getting to experience different ways. And I think that that's as long as you can understand where other people are coming from,
Mm-hmm.
people will find a way to, like, work together to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And I personally think the hunting industry is doing some great things. There's aspects of it, obviously, that are, you know, not great.
Right.
But I think that the more people that we have supporting companies that are doing it in the right way and supporting conservation and working with those organizations, I think that it's a good thing. And I think that we have to be the leaders, and we have to be the people that are pushing it, you know, into that space, I guess.
Yeah. No, I agree completely. And I don't, that's always a hard question to answer, because it gives the impression that you're being judgmental about others and their messages. And I don't mean it that way at all. I ask myself every day, every message I produce, every photo I post, every video that gets posted, or every episode we air, I go back to our original business plan, and it's all about, why am I doing this? Everything in the first executive summary of my business plan for these media messages is why. And does the stuff I put out, does it meet the why criteria? The how, the what, everything else, it'll take care of itself. And for me, the why was about making sure that what I do, what I can contribute to this process, helps hunting, conservation, all the things that we love and hold dear. And so that's part of why I'm always interested in what you guys are doing, because you know, you guys try and experiment, doing some really cool things, and I'm like, ooh, I like that. So I don't know if you have a business methodology patent on some of the things you do, but at times I'm peeking in, saying, hey, I might try that. So
yeah, that's a great compliment for sure. I mean, I think that happens more and more frequently, you know, and I think that you have to look at that as a compliment, and not be frustrated that other people are, like, you know, starting to go down that path. Like, that was our goal. Like, yeah. Make it authentic, make it about the experience. And if we can do that and companies get behind it, then other companies will get behind it, which means more people will think that that's important.
Yep.
And it won't be just about, like, how big stuff is.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I want to kill a giant bull elk
right. That's
every single year.
Yeah.
And I'll pass up on bulls that other people are like, what are you doing? And it's about the challenge and the effort that goes into it. And that's I think if you do stuff that people respect and you know, follow the rules and play by the rules, more people will do that. And I think we do that with our company all the time, and the companies that we work with and the media that we get to help produce I think it's on the, you know, cutting edge of what people are doing right now. And I think that it's pushing the hunting industry in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. Well, the interesting part is that hunting in media and messaging is not an island of itself. We are part of a bigger demographic and a society that it's changing fast. I mean, TV is, you know, not just in the hunting world, but across the entire society. You know, the cord cutting syndrome, if you want to call it that, is causing people to consume media way different than I grew up consuming media. There's still a large TV audience, but a younger and different audience is now very much a digital audience. And one of our common partners, Gerber, they come to me, and they're very straightforward. As Randy, we are about digital messaging. that's where our future is. That's a big part of where our customer is. We love your Hunt Talk forum. We like that you're doing this YouTube channel, blah, blah, blah. That's going to be a huge change for the hunting world just because of who we are demographically. If you look at our bell curve, we're a little bit older than the rest of society. We're a little more homogenous, mostly white male. But that's not going to stay that way forever. And that's going to create a huge amount of opportunity for those who want to take advantage of it.
Oh, most certainly. I think as a younger person in the industry, I'm not as young, I guess, as I was.
How old are you, Mark? Can I ask you?
I'm 37.
37, okay.
I had to think about that for a little bit. When I got started in this, I guess, in like my mid-20s, like I didn't watch TV. I didn't have a TV. Yeah. I didn't have the money to pay for cable. Like I wanted to be out there and going for it.
Doing it.
What I did have access to is like things started coming up was online. I had a computer so I could see stuff online. And that's one aspect of why I've never really done, anything specifically for television. Mm-hmm. We've made commercials,
right?
As a production company, but it's that part's hard,
Mm-hmm.
and we've had this talk a lot of times. Television's hard. Like I think a lot of people have, misconceptions of what, TV guys and how much money they make and all that kind of stuff. Like I see the one-man band TV shows that I don't know how they make it.
Yeah.
Where there's a one hunter and he's also the editor and his buddy's filming him and like all those type of things. Like that's hard. The sponsorship dollars that are coming out there for anybody like below the top, like, whatever that top percentage is, they're not huge,
right?
And people are bootstrapping a lot of it. And I think that's people do it because they love it, and I think for us, it's always been, we want to control the messaging in a way that gives us the freedom to, tell a shorter story or tell a longer story and, not make it about what, a TV network wants,
right?
With the number of commercials and the number of episodes. And I don't like that type of pressure. Like I like the pressure associated with like pulling off a very well done piece of content.
Yeah. Like,
that we can put the time into.
How many hours, maybe you shouldn't measure it in hours, maybe it's years, did you put into, you did that piece, Searching for West. When did that air? 3 years ago?
I guess it would have been, it came out in August of 2012.
4 years ago then almost.
So 4 years ago.
Yeah.
The amount of time and effort that went into that was crazy, and obviously like the pre-production started on that. We got some funding, to tell an elk hunting story because everybody wants elk hunting stories, and elk hunting stories, they're a dime a dozen. They're everywhere. Right. Everybody's got them, and there's no way to tell like the best elk hunting story ever. And I think as we started to look at that, we're like, okay, we have to like key into the experience and working with some great friends on the production side at that time. They were like, well, we can, like pop up, with the red camera from behind you, like right as you're about to shoot the elk. And it's just like that stuff's hard,
Mm-hmm.
and we came, I guess, like the story, we try to like figure out what our story is long before we go into the field to shoot it. And that one was like, while we were in the production, pre-production, talking about this elk hunting story, we found out we were expecting our first child. And so I was like, well, this is the story, how this whole thing plays out with having a baby right before hunting season and the importance that hunting plays in my life to my job.
Yeah.
And the fact that I pretty much have to be there, but I also have to be at home. I think that once we pulled that one off in a way that people respected, and not everybody got it, and people, to this day, I get comments almost daily from people, about that piece that was released almost 4 years ago. I think it was an important piece for the hunting industry. It was a very important piece for our business and our belief in what hunting is.
Yeah.
And our belief in that you could tell stories that didn't involve like shooting an elk.
Right.
And that was a tough fall. That was a hard fall, the amount of days that we put in, but it pushed me to, find new areas and, yeah, it was an incredible experience. And I think the fact that we could pull off a story of that magnitude about something that was so different, I think it gave a lot of belief in other companies that we could tell, more of those type of stories. And we started to look for stories more within the space, more about the people and like what goes on versus just the outcome.
Yeah.
And that was a big learning lesson. I mean, I remember standing up like in front of, like, we had a premiere in Bozeman, and it was like standing room only. Like, we sold out like a place, and there was, I think it was like 800 and some people. I remember being like, man, everybody is expecting me to kill an elk in this film, and like I don't, and like I was nervous, to see what would happen, and but confident in knowing that we had a great message.
Yeah.
That was cool. It was a very important moment.
I in great story, great production. I mean, high production values. To me, what was very interesting was to see that you had decided, even with all that you had riding on it, that it was going to be distributed digitally. It's never aired on a TV platform anywhere, has it?
No.
And right now, someone could go watch it at seacatcreative.com.
You can see it from our website. Searchingforwest.com is still there. It's on YouTube for all the companies that like played with it. But it was mostly, we're a social media based company. We do social media, we do high-end production, we do photography, we do all that type of stuff. So for us, it was like we looked at a way to increase the distribution associated with it so we could reach as many eyeballs as possible. Yeah. And I think there was like, I can't remember how many companies were involved in the distribution model that we set up, but it was ingenious. It was different. And the giveaways, the products, like all that kind of stuff that, people were able to like get all these amazing things, and like it was a cool thing to give away. It was all we wanted was to spread the message. Yeah. And like it was cool to get involved with a lot of companies that, only a few companies like helped fund the project. And I think those companies were Sika, Leica, and Gore-Tex. Mm-hmm. And everybody else like was willing to help and spread the message. And we created a distribution plan that reached millions of people. Yeah. And I think that was cool because it was spreading a message about the good parts of hunting. Yep. And stuff that's important in a way that hadn't been done before, and that was cool. And yeah, and the length is like, if you look at the length, it's like the exact same length as a TV show. Yeah. And that was done on purpose.
No, and again, I go out and I look at anything that catches my eye, and I've went out and looked at that and given it a lot of thought. And the reason being is I've concluded in today's world, you can't be in just one place. You have to be in all places, which is why we've started this podcast. One, we felt we and our guests had some important messages for listeners. So there's that digital platform. We still have TV. And a little plug for TV. Our first episode premieres July 3rd on Sportsman's Channel. 9 o'clock Sunday nights, Mountain Time. I don't know. I quit doing the math of what that is Eastern Time. But we're doing something next Monday, and we started promoting it this week, is we've filmed some episodes, and this takes a lot of extra time and a lot of extra costs to do these experiments, but we have 2 episodes coming up that are going to be YouTube exclusives, because we feel that in addition to TV, we also have to be in other places, and whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that, but YouTube is a place where we're trying to reach more people. And maybe this is a shameless plug, so I'm just going to say it, and, and hopefully the audience will suffer with it. But on Monday, June 27th, people are going to be able to go to YouTube, go to our Randy Newberg Hunter channel, and that's the only place they're going to be able to watch this episode. And it's going to get it's loaded already. We're just going to turn the switch and say, make it live at 7 o'clock Mountain Time on Monday. And we're going to promote it heavily for a month just to see what kind of results you can get on a digital platform. And it's a little shorter than a normal TV episode. I think it's 17 minutes. But the other part of it is the camera guy who filmed this, Tyler Jonerson. We filmed it really what I'll call raw in a lot of respects. We just wanted the running and gunning and the yelling at each other. Are you on them? No, I'm not on them. Or, hey, I'm on them. No, that's it. And I've watched it many times, and it's got a pretty different feel to it. It's still our self-guided public land message. But I wanted the audience to get that feel of, oh, this is what's really going on out there. Because in TV, there's this expectation to have this really polished production level. And not that we're going to compromise that, but there's a lot of things in this one that would never have been put into TV. And so watching you and how you guys did Searching for West and how some of the other projects you guys have worked on being strictly digital projects, I've been out there doing my intel. I do stuff you do and a few others who I respect to just see how do you take this message and put it in other places, especially in the digital world, because I'm a firm believer that 10 years from now, the digital world is going to be the world. TV will always have some relevance, but let's face it, society is going a certain direction. And whether we as hunters want to go that direction or not, as new hunters or, as people as society, this generation, millennials or whatever, become the peak of the bell curve, our media consumption is going to match what their media consumption habits are. And I think that's going to be heavily digital. So I'm either going to fall on my face with these experiments and going to have to go get a job washing dishes or mowing lawns to make up for all we've invested in it. But I'm hoping it works out.
Yeah, I think we're already there. I mean, we've purposely stayed away from TV for that very reason, that we think it's already there. And as a younger guy, and I employ a lot of younger people, how they consume media has always been very important to what we do. And a lot of people don't have the time or the want and desire. There's a few TV shows that I'll set record on whatever the system is I have, and watch them because I like the people. I like the people in them, but I don't typically watch much TV. Yeah. I like watching sporting events. Live sports is all I really care about on television. But that other aspect is people are online and they've been there, and you've seen as these companies in the hunting space are understanding that more and more, the shift of dollars away from that, and that's the hard aspect of it.
Right.
You have to shift dollars, and we've seen the shift from print dollars, and we've seen the shift from TV dollars into more media that can be shared in different ways in different areas, whether it's social media or pieces that live on the internet. You can still reach a lot of people, and there's some interesting companies that we work with that are doing it in great ways currently, and understanding what that model looks like and how to reach people is, it's possible.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what we would do, if we had released Searching for West, now, the number of people we could reach by how we understand the model more now.
Yeah.
And how the companies we work with are doing that. There's a tremendous reach potential, and I'm not even sure we're in the millions and millions of views on that film, but I mean, we could blow it out of the water now.
Yeah. Well, to me, it's just, I want to be in every space that I possibly can with my message. So we'll see how it works. We have later this year, in addition to this Montana elk hunt that airs on Monday the 27th, later this year we have an Alaska black bear hunt that is going to be YouTube only. So we'll find out. Maybe maybe I'll be calling you. Hey, Mark, you need a janitor? I've worn out my welcome and all this other stuff that I've been doing. So, but I promised Mark I wouldn't keep him too late because you have a baby due this week, don't you?
Official due date's July 2nd.
Oh, okay.
I got a text from my wife during this that we just had a checkup and everything's looking good. So
okay,
we have some You have some time.
if
never
somehow
know.
if the audience hears the microphone drop on the floor and the door slam, it's that Mark got the text. Get here now, darling, because things are happening.
That's right. That's right. So any day, it's pretty exciting times in my household.
Well, one of the things I'd really like to ask you is, you've been on a lot of hunts in a lot of places doing some cool things. Of all the hunts you've been on, is there one that's on your list of, I got to go do that again?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I like all. I mean, all the trips are fantastic, and I love the NWT. I love hunting Dall sheep. I love being on Dall sheep hunts. Yeah, going with people. That the northern Mackenzie Mountains are, I would say, are one of the most tremendous places in the world. Yeah. And I'm working on a project now where I'm like, spending 6 hours of my day going through, like, I think we have like 12 or 16 hunts up there doing that. Wow. So I'm going through all the historical footage, and it's just fun. I just find myself like, with my headphones on, just like laughing and smiling and looking at that place and reliving those experiences. Like, I think a lot of people, want the Grand Slam or the Fanaz, and of all of them. And like, I would love to just have, I would love to go Dall sheep hunting every single year for the rest of my life. Like, I could never, ever get enough of that. That's the one. And the people that I've been able to go on those trips with, and the time where you totally unplug, and you don't even have service. You don't even worry about emails. You have a phone and a sat phone to check in with your family, which is like the most important thing that you have to do while you're out there. Yeah. That's unlike any other experience. And I think anything that I get to do where I get to do that is super motivating. But that area, any sheep hunt is a fantastic experience. And I like being in the high mountains, and I like, backpacking for a long time. The last big one we did was, we had a backpack hunt that was 22 days long. Wow. And that was a tremendous adventure. Yeah. And I'd go back and do that one immediately, so I guess that answers the question. Okay. So then everyone has a bucket list of some sort. If, all the places you've traveled, all the hunters you interact with. I mean, a lot of times my bucket list, like what was high on my bucket list until last year was Sitka blacktails, because I had a friend in Southeast Alaska who is just like the Sitka nut of the world. And a lot of times I think our bucket list gets a little bit influenced by people we interact with or cross paths with. So is there, if work wasn't dictating where and how and what you did, is there a hunt that Mark just, I want to go do this in the next 5 years? And it can be anywhere in the world with any species, any weapon, whatever. Maybe it's frog gigging. I don't know. I doubt it, but yeah, I really like tarpon fishing.
That's okay, that works too.
But yeah, I don't really know. I think that for me, it's I don't really have that bucket list. I don't have like something that I have to do, have to achieve. It's like I just want to maximize as many days as I can, and I would just say any hunt in the high mountains with good friends, like, and as I, do it more, I would say that it would be archery related, and whether that's moose or mountain caribou or Dall sheep. I mean, those are all fantastic. I'd love to, I'm really excited about the opportunity when I do draw some of those like glory tags for elk, because I know I'll put a lot of pressure on myself, and I like that. I thrive on that, so I'm looking forward to getting some of those. But really, I feel like every fall I have something that is like my one trip a year that's like, it's not really a bucket list trip, but it's something that I'm motivated by. Yeah. And hopefully, it happens every year. I have 1 or 2 or 6 trips like that I've planned and really looked forward to. So I'm not sure. Like, I mean, I would maximize the number of days I spend on a skiff catching tarpon, like, for sure. That's been a newfound love
for me. What you were just starting to say there, of how every fall you have some of those on that list of trips that you've put together. I almost pinch myself every once in a while and say, guess what, Randy? everything that you have on your calendar this fall is probably a dream experience for someone who's watching or listening. And I try to never take that for granted. I try to show how much fun and pleasure can be had in every one of these trips. And so it's almost an embarrassment of riches to get to do what I get to do. And I'm eternally grateful for that. I'm really grateful that I have a wife, thank you, Kim, who puts up with me doing this and supports me doing it and realizes that, you know, there are no guarantees in life. And Randy, if that's your dream and that's your passion and that's what you're allowed to do, go do it. And then one that I want to repeat, and this one was tentatively on the calendar for the upcoming season, but it got moved because we drew some limited entry tags that, you know, when you draw a limited entry tag, it's like, well, I better go do that because it's going to be 8 years before I draw it again. And you're probably going to think this is crazy, but on the calendar was going back to my little hometown back in northern Minnesota and shooting rough grouse, or partridge as they call them back there. And every time I go back there, I can drive by these places that, I remember when my dad, he carried me out of there and gave me a piggyback ride out of there. I was 6 years old and we were in there grouse hunting. And it's almost like getting back to this most simple, basic connection of what got me started down this path I've lived for the last 40 years. And I even find some of the big game hunts I'm now rotating back towards, if you want to call it that, are those really simple, anyone can go do it. You know, there's something peculiar, or at least for me, having grown up in Minnesota, about sitting in the cottonwood bottoms of Montana and watching whitetails in November do their crazy rut. I think I could just sit there without a rifle and have a hell of a lot of fun doing that. And so for me, it's, I'm now feeling like what my one friend calls it, you're a boomerang hunter. You go out and then you kind of come back to where you started. So I don't know that I'll ever have, quote unquote, a bucket list, but if there was ever a really fun public land Roosevelt elk hunt that I knew that I could plan and figure out myself. And so I'm sure now all the Oregon and Washington listeners are going to say, Randy, have I got an idea for you? But I don't know. There's just something about those landscapes out there on the coast that appeal to me. And it's not so much the elk, I don't think, as it is the uniqueness of where the hunt unfolds. Kind of like your talk about the Northwest Territories. It's a lot of times it's the landscape that interests me as much as it is the species and the hunt.
Well, and the time that you get to spend there, you know, and the people, you know, the places, like those are the most important things. Like that's, I think that, you know, that landscape and where you get a chance to go and like you get to be there for the time period is cool. And you take those experiences home with you, you know, it doesn't end. And I think that's really cool. And you were mentioning going back to like your hometown in Minnesota, like those are, you know, and back to the bucket list things, like time spent with my dad, time spent with my godfather, times, you know, that I will get to spend, you know, with, you know, my sons and my family. That's all stuff that I can't wait to do. I watch like, you know, Tom Foss, a friend of mine who lives in Alberta, and like his sons, Cam and Adam, like the fact that they get to like go on sheep hunts with their dad, like, and multiple times a year. And like, you know, I think that that's a tremendous thing. And like, I can't wait to, you know, hopefully be in that same position, you know, with my kids, like down the road, and be that dad that's still fit and strong, you know, that can like move through the woods and the mountains and the hills with them. I think that will be really neat.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that's an aspect of it that I think is really cool. And whether that's boomerang or whatever, I think it's part of sharing it, you know, with the next generation. And I think that's a really cool aspect of hunting as well.
Yeah. As someone who occasionally your stuff shows up in my feeds on social media, when you were talking about hunting with your dad, you guys have quite a tradition of antelope hunting in Montana. I see you post a lot of really powerful thoughts about what that hunt means when you and your dad and I think a couple of other family members go with you out there. And people say like antelope hunting in eastern Montana. I'm sure it's not just that it's antelope or that it's the prairies of eastern Montana. It's kind of back to what you said. It's all the things, the connection,
Yeah, it's my earliest hunting experiences were antelope and mule deer and elk and those type of things. But antelope's like what my dad loves the most. He loves that landscape. I mean, it's an incredible excitement for him to go out there every year and do the exact same thing, camp in the exact same spot, eat the exact same food, like, do the exact same hunts, the same stalks, like, and shoot an antelope that's about the same every time, and I think that's really cool. And we've been able to have those experiences with my grandfather hunted out there. My mom hunted out there. My sister Lisa shot an antelope when she was 12 out there. My a very close friend of ours who's 96 used to hunt out there for forever. I took my friend Les Hausauer on his last hunt before he passed away from cancer in that exact same spot, and I think that those are, that place is like there's those trips and every single person has them, something that they have done for a long time. And that's what makes it special. That's what makes it really cool. And I think that that's a pretty tremendous, for me, that's a tremendous hunt. That's something that's always blocked off, always going to do it. I'm going to be going out there with my dad and my kids and my family and my friends, for as long as I live, to that exact same spot. Like, and it's not the biggest antelope in the world, but it doesn't matter one bit, I mean, and I love antelope meat. I think it's one of the best things there is. And we've figured out a great way to take care of them so that it, is fantastic food. And it's I love that. Yeah. Love that time of year. Love that area. I love Eastern Montana.
Oh, I love all the above. And hearing you say that, Mark, my dad passed away in 2004, so it's been 12 years now. And if the listeners take away anything from this podcast, I hope that they'll think about what you just described of what that hunt, wherever it could have been, someone talking about a whitetail hunt in Ohio, or talking about a duck hunt in Arkansas, whatever. I hope that you'll go, if you're listening, that you will block out one of your trips this year, whether it's a one-day trip, a weekend trip, whatever, to go and do some of those kind of things, because someday that person's not going to be here to go hunting with them. I mean, I'm in that situation where, my dad's been gone for 12 years, and what I wouldn't give to go and have another rough grouse hunt with him, but it's not going to happen. Point being, though, the value and just what those hunts what it meant to him when I came back to Minnesota to deer hunt one year was like, he was, for a month, it was like a daily phone call. The rest of the year, I wouldn't hear from him but once a month on the phone. But man, when it was this deer hunt, it was just this special thing. And that was when I was in my 30s and I wasn't young, or I was too young to quite grasp how much it meant to him. But hearing you say that about how it means so much to your family, and I think we all need some of that. We need to go back to what kind of connects us and grounds us to what got us here, and we'll remind ourselves this is what it's really about. And I hope you guys keep doing it forever, and I hope that your family gets to go and do it with their grandpa, and it just stays part of that. And for you and for other listeners who have those kind of family hunts, I hope they keep those going, because that really is what, when we get down to it, that's what it's really all about. For me, anyhow.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So we're I'm probably holding you a little longer than I promised you, Mark. So I'm gonna wrap this up a little bit here. But I'm not gonna let you. There's two things you're gonna have to do. One, is there anything we haven't covered that you want to interject?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think you're doing a good job of it.
Okay. And then swinging back to public land elk hunting. Whenever we have guests on that I think are well known for a certain activity, I always ask them, you got one or two really critical points that maybe the listener would benefit from. They may already know, but maybe they just, in our hurry or our distractions. Is there some basic, all right, this is whenever I'm struggling with my hunt, this is something that I take myself back to, whether it's a mental thing, whether it's whatever. It's something that you think a listener who's getting to that point in elk hunting,
as far as like frustrations, like during a hunt,
or what's the one piece of advice you would give them that you think is going to help them most in reaching their goals or having the success they're hoping to have?
Yeah, I guess just like if you find yourself in that situation where you're frustrated or, it's not working out, just remember how lucky you are to be there, and to like not have to think about work or you're hunting.
Yeah,
I mean, you're involved in this like really cool experience, and like try to soak it up and remember that there's no real pressure. Like, don't be as hard on yourself and put a lot of pressure. Enjoy it, like soak it up, because you don't know when it's going to go away.
Right.
You don't know, how many days you have. So I think it's try not to put as much pressure on yourself and soak it up. Like, be in the moment as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all guilty of that at times, of putting too much pressure on ourselves, and it distracts. It can distract from the real pleasure of the experience. I'm guilty of it. I wish I could say I wasn't, but there's times where I've got my mind locked into something, and it's like, take a breath, Randy. Look at where you're at. Look at what you're doing. Great thought, great comment on that. And so, Mark, I'm gonna let you go. I'm not gonna give any marital advice like I do a lot of times on the podcast. The NRA, if you get the NRA magazine, American Hunter, it came out this week, and I'm in trouble at home because Pat Durkin had heard me giving marital advice on this podcast, and he said, I want to interview you and Steve Vernella about marital advice, how you guys get to hunt so much. And so he wrote an article in American Hunter, and a bunch of people emailed me about it. And my wife's like, what are they talking about? So I handed her the article, and she's like, oh, you're pretty smug there, mister. You think you got it all figured out, huh? I'm thinking, uh-oh, this was not a good idea, Randy. You've been married 27 years. You should have not opened your mouth to this degree. So how do you and Katie work such a crazy schedule with 2 kids?
I think it's, obviously we communicate very well.
Yeah.
And we haven't always done that. And I think that, for me, it's come, the amount of time that I spend in the field has gone down dramatically as my phone falls to the floor waiting on that text message. I used to hunt a lot,
right.
I a tremendous amount of days in the field. And when I first got started, I mean, my first like date, with my wife was a 6-day elk hunt. So it was like,
that's a good start.
I think she's always really understood, and she helped found our business and has always understood that it's really important. And I think that, as I've seen like younger couples, like, employees that we have in our company, as they struggle with that time as well, it's all about communication and being able to say, there's a tremendous amount of opportunities that come across my plate, as I'm the same for you. And it's about like understanding what makes the most sense, the time of year, what stuff you can do, and how much time you want to be away. I love being a dad more than anything else in my life. And I think that that's how I approach like everything, is how can I be a great husband? How can I be a great business owner? How can I be a great dad, a great son? And try to think about those things before I'm like, hey, I have all these opportunities, and make sure that they make sense, and it's like, we haven't always been good at that. And I've said yes to things and committed to things, and then had to like, tell my wife about them. And I've learned that it's just be upfront, and like, this opportunity came up, like, okay, we'll talk about that, when it's time to talk about it. And it's I think that's an important aspect of it, is to, have a really good open line of communication. But it's also my business, and it's our job. And so I get away with a lot because of that. She doesn't buy that excuse so much anymore, and luckily we have other people, within our business that get to go have those experiences, and we're able to send people on great trips and do that kind of stuff. Whereas back in the day, I had to be it.
Right.
I was the photographer. I was the guy filming. I was the guy hunting.
Yeah.
Now it's more, I can pick and choose what I want to do and what is really important to me. And based on the timeline, of what's going on with our family. And I think that's important, is to make sure that your priorities are straight. And everybody listening here is a hunter.
Yeah. So
they can I think that they're, probably being like, well, you get to go and hunt and get paid to do it and all those type of things. And might, call BS on some of that, but I try to be very respectful to my family in terms of that time. And I understand how important that time is. You don't get it back.
No. Yeah.
My buddy Les always would say, they grow so quickly. You will not believe how quickly the moment goes by. And so you better soak it up, because it's gone in a flash. And he told me one time, he was like, I would go back immediately to when my kids were just born. I would relive it. I would because it's gone so quickly.
Yeah.
And if you don't soak it up, you're going to be missing out on that later on. And I have taken that to heart, and it's very important. That time is I put a priority on my time with my family, and at times it's not great for business, because it's
right.
I'm focused so heavily on that, and I turn down a lot of opportunities because of family stuff. And I try not to miss a birthday. I've not done so good on my anniversaries. It falls right in the middle of the opening few hunts for sheep hunts in the NWT. And so I think I'm 2 for 5. I'll be here this year, which is a good thing. But we got birthdays in August 19th is Wes's birthday. Towns was born on September 9th, right in the middle of archery season. And I just won't miss those.
Right.
And everybody always gives me a hard time. Hunting season babies, what were you doing? And it's just Adam Foss, his birthday is late September. Mm-hmm. And, at the time, I think you're always I'm missing these days. But eventually, we're going to be spending birthdays hunting sheep, and we're going to be spending birthdays hunting elk. And that's pretty cool to be able to do that. And, I know that I'll be spending a lot of time in the field with my kids. And so that'll be fun stuff to look forward to.
Yeah. Well, there is no greater pleasure and no greater job that we have than being parents and spouses. And I married so far up the ladder, Mark, that from the rung I was at, I couldn't even see what was that high up the ladder. Or as my one friend says, I outkicked my coverage by a long ways. And I never take that for granted. As much as I joke about it or write about it, when I'm not hunting, it's all about what is it for my family. That's it. I mean, yeah, business has to be business, but I am never going to put business or a contract or whatever above something that's important to my family. This is who I am. And in the long run, none of that stuff is as important as being the husband I am, being the dad that I want to be. And it's by making those my priorities, kind of like you were explaining. Now my son's 26, and yes, it happens really, really fast. So don't miss a day that you don't have to. But now, hunting is a big part of the fabric of what binds our family. A lot of our activities, a lot of the stuff we do is woven, the common thread that weaves it all is hunting, fishing, and being outdoors. So I'm glad I made it. What a great
deal that is.
It is. I mean, what a great country. I mean, we live in a place where we can hunt and fish and do all these things, and it becomes such a part of who we are and who we identify with and how we live our lives. So
yeah, we're super fortunate.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for taking the time here to spend with us today. I promised the audience this would be kind of a campfire chat, and it's kind of turned out that way. And our paths will allow us to have more of these chats, and we probably won't have microphones in front of us at that time. But I want to thank all of you for listening. Couple things I want to leave you with is, we have this YouTube exclusive episode that Airs June 27th, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And you can watch it anytime after that. It's just that's when it's going to go live on YouTube. And our TV show, the premiere there on Sportsman's Channel, starts July 3rd, Sunday night, 9 o'clock Mountain Time. Both of these happen to be really, really cool elk hunts. And the other thing that you're going to see when the TV show starts is we are having one great big giveaway this summer and this fall. From July through December, we are giving away tens of thousands of dollars of product. And starting July 1st, you will be able to find out everything about that drawing and that big sweepstakes, no purchase necessary, out on randynewberg.com. So go to our YouTube channel, subscribe there. It's free, and you'll be notified when all these new content pieces are there. And Mark, thanks so much. Hope I didn't keep you too long from Katie.
I appreciate you having me here. So.
Yeah, and we'll do it again sometime.
Sounds awesome.
All right. Thanks for listening, folks. Have a great day. 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 Have a great